Welcome to the 2020 Neighborhood Ada County Highway District Candidate Forum. I am Don Day, the publisher of BoiseDev.com. Our BoiseDev reporters help Treasure Valley residents understand what's behind the changes and growth they see in their neighborhoods. I'm pleased to be your moderator this evening. This forum is brought to you by a whopping 16 neighborhood associations. The forum organizers are Deborah Mullner, Karen Danley, Linda Paul, Deanna Smith, and Diane Ronayne. American Sign Language translation will be provided by Sierra McIver and Lavana Andrew, with funding by Link, the Living Independence Network Corporation. So, what is the Ada County Highway District? ACHD is responsible for planning, designing, and managing efficient traffic flow and traffic safety throughout Ada County, except for those roads that fall under state or federal jurisdictions, such as state highways. Ada County is divided into 5 ACHD districts, which you can see on your screen. This year, citizens are voting for commissioners in districts 1, 2, and 5 only. ACHD commissioners for districts 3 and 4 will be elected in 2 years in 2022. The slide shows the candidates running in each district this year. The office of commissioner is nonpartisan, and commissioners are elected by residents within their district boundaries, but they rule on issues countywide. This slide displays only the District 5 boundaries, and you can see it on your screen. Tonight's forum is divided into 3 sections, 1 for each district. We've completed the 1st and 2nd districts, and now it's time for District 5. This is a forum, not a debate. We've asked the candidates to answer 7 questions posed by neighborhoods. The candidates have had a week to think about their responses since they received the questions on September 30th. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Our timer tonight is Eleanor Cheehee with the League of Women Voters. Candidates will alternate asking questions first. We will now hear from District 5 Commission candidates Emilie Jackson-Edney and Dave McKinney, who will each take a minute to introduce themselves. And we'll start with Emilie.
Thank you, Don. First of all, I want to thank the combined neighborhood associations for their invitation to this candidate forum. This race is important, and the results will affect our transportation system and our children for generations to come. I'm Emilie Jackson-Edney. I care about Ada County, the cities, and the neighborhoods where I've lived my entire life. And I care about the organization that I worked with for 37 years doing civil engineering design and construction management in supervisory levels. I've dedicated half of my life to better our transportation system. I know my way around every step of the transportation project, and I want to put that know-how into service to my county and to my neighbors. I feel called to serve and to share all of the lessons that I learned doing this work to build on the past successes of this organization with a vision for a better future. As your commissioner, I won't have a large learning curve, and I can hit the ground running on day 1.
Emilie, thank you. Now, Dave McKinney.
Thank you. I'm Dave McKinney. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering with an emphasis in highway and transportation engineering. I earned my professional engineer's license in 1995 and worked for a number of years in civil engineering, designing highway projects for ACHD and ITD and other jurisdictions around the state. I'm also an attorney, and I've practiced law since 1998. As in the field of transportation and highway engineering, I currently serve as a Meridian Transportation Commissioner, and in that role we work closely with ACHD and other agencies on transportation and related topics. I also served for about 6 years as a Planning and Zoning Commissioner in another city, and come at this position with a broad range of understanding, both of the technicalities of highway and transportation planning and construction, as well as an understanding of state and local government law, how these jurisdictions work together, and how they can be made to work more effectively, And I propose to bring that strength and that knowledge to this position on the Ada County Highway District.
So we'll start by talking about the hot topic of late, growth. What is your vision for a transportation system that matches the needs of our fast-growing community? This first question, we start with Dave McKinney.
Growth is the single biggest issue that ACHD faces. Ada County currently has around 500,000 residents, which is about triple what it was in 1980. But the sad reality is that ACHD has not been able to keep up with that pace of growth. And so what they need is, number one, more funding to be able to do what they're required to do, which is build a roadway system that serves all the residents. We also have to recognize that expanding and developing and improving this roadway system is and will continue to be our first priority, and that will be my first priority as ACHD Commissioner. We've got hundreds and hundreds of miles of two-lane farm-to-market roads that have no more capacity today than what they had 100 years ago. That needs to be improved because the people need to get where they need to go. That's the primary objective, the primary responsibility of ACHD, is to help the people get where they need to go. For example, arterial highways are called arterials because, like the arteries in your body, they carry the lifeblood of the community, which is the people. We've got to keep these arteries running smoothly, and the better we do at that, the more prosperous and safe our community will be.
Dave, thank you. Emilie, same question.
Thank you, Don. Ada County and its cities are facing pressures of growth. That's undeniable. Our land use development patterns and our transportation issues related to our quality of life, mobility, connectivity, congestion, filling the gaps, safety in our environment are all connected in ways that it's impossible to disentangle or separate them. So my life has been dedicated to our transportation needs and our desires, not only as a resident of Ada County for my entire life, where I commute and recreate on our roadways, but as a transportation professional to better our infrastructure towards safety, quality, and accessibility for all modes of travel. And I'll repeat that, all modes of travel. My vision is not singular, and it covers numerous items. And you can go to my website and you can see what my platform is in more detail. And one is that we continue to engage and work with all of our partners and our stakeholders, neighborhoods and others to explore transportation solutions to our growth issues. We project and we plan for orderly growth patterns within our communities through developing comprehensive plans and zoning with areas of impact. With this plan, we can effectively mitigate those impacts of growth to our transportation system and how we can navigate within and outside of our neighborhoods. So my vision continues to be to build right the first time and to ensure effective preventative maintenance in a timely manner so that all of our assets meet or extend their planned life expectancy. Thank you.
So this is a forum organized by neighborhood associations, and those NAs receive many comments expressing residents' transportation frustrations. Do you consider citizen organizations such as neighborhood associations and homeowners associations as your partners? If so, how would you suggest engaging them? And this time we'll start with Emilie Jackson-Edney.
Thank you, Don. So my answer to this question is, of course. It's my belief that it would be incumbent on me as a commissioner and for ACHD departments to nurture and with direct input from neighborhood associations as our partners. So neighborhood associations have a pulse of the residents about issues and concerns affecting them on a daily basis with regard to transportation. And they give residents a forum to discuss common concerns and to brainstorm possible solutions that can be shared with ACHD. And they actually greatly improve two-way conversation and provide a clear and organized way to speak so their voices are heard. If ACHD doesn't have designated employees to act as liaisons with neighborhood associations, they should. I don't know. But I would find out it hard to believe that they don't. ACHD has TELUS, an application is another way to communicate. And if I know about neighborhood meetings, or if I'm invited, I will attend those meetings and provide comment if asked. And I believe ACHD communicates and involves neighborhoods associations in the planning process to solicit comments, although I think, it's the latter stages of the planning process. I don't know. ACHD advertises and holds public information meetings on the integrated 5-year work program, on specific projects and events that directly affect neighborhoods. And all these sorts of outreach and soliciting comment must continue.
Emilie, thank you. Dave, same question.
Yeah, I think the question of should neighborhood associations be considered partners in what we do? Absolutely. I don't think that's a difficult question at all. The Ada County Highway District, in meeting its responsibility to care for the roads and transportation infrastructure of the county, absolutely need as much input as possible. That input comes from the traffic analysis and traffic studies that are done in-house, as well as from residents. We'll be talking about traffic calming later, but that's a good example of the kind of input that neighborhood associations can give to the commission. The transportation issues need to be engaged with as many inputs as possible, including neighborhood associations. That includes having them part of ACHD meetings, having workshops with them, and also making sure that they are made aware of projects and policies and considerations that will affect them directly. So absolutely, we should keep them in the loop at all times.
Thank you. Now let's talk about allocation of funds. We're going to put up a graphic here. ACHD funding primarily comes from 4 sources. They are property taxes, fuel taxes, new development impact fees, and Ada County vehicle registration fees. And there are some others that you can see on the slide. How would you prioritize ACHD's limited funds to address all of Ada County's transportation issues? We begin with Dave McKinney.
Well, I said earlier that ACHD has been traditionally underfunded with respect to the duties it has, the responsibilities it has. More funds are needed. And I said earlier that the first priority of ACHD is to improve and expand our highway network. So when it comes to allocating those funds, that's going to be at the top of the list for the foreseeable future. At the same time, ACHD already allocates a significant portion of funds to community projects, such as bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and is involved, as has been mentioned earlier, in transit issues. So those things should certainly continue. As far as getting new fees is concerned, or getting new revenue to allow ACHD to continue, there are a few options. There are some restrictions on ACHD's use of impact fees. And these sorts of restrictions can be addressed and need to be addressed through the state legislature. Additionally, I'm primarily opposed to raising taxes. Impact fees were just recently raised. Raising property taxes is a major concern for all Idaho residents. The truth is, it's the allocation of funds, meaning getting funds from other sources, that ACHD ought to pursue. And one of those is additional fees on heavy truck users, because heavy trucks put several thousand times the wear and tear on our highways than what passenger cars do. And so that's one area in which fees could reasonably and rationally be increased without directly impacting the residents of the county.
Dave, thank you. Emilie, same question to you on allocation of funds.
Thank you, Don. First, I acknowledge that there's never enough revenue at all to solve all of our problems. So how do we prioritize limited funds to address our transportation issues? And first and foremost, my vision is to build things right the first time and ensure preventative maintenance is performed in a timely manner so that all of our assets in our multi-billion-dollar transportation infrastructure is performed in a timely manner so that they'll meet their planned life expectancy. This is what I did while working with ACHD. And in the long run, this is the most cost-effective work that ACHD does, and its importance should not be diminished. We work with our stakeholders and municipal partners to identify the specific needs of our transportation system based on projections of orderly growth. Urgent needs receive priority. And the other transportation enhancements are prioritized through a planning process to project available revenues to construct capital projects. Should budget shortfalls occur, project schedules are adjusted and postponed, and this is not a very productive process. So as stated in my platform, I'll look for additional funding options such as federal grants and statute changes to shift more funding from our general fund percentage matches to ensure growth impacts pay for themselves, and to possibly modify vehicle registration fees that are based on age of vehicle to formulas based upon the amount of vehicle miles. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to discuss people with disabilities. It's been stated, serve ages 8 through 80 and everyone is better served. How could ACHD improve roads, paths, sidewalks, and crossings for use by people of all ages and diverse abilities, from parents with strollers to folks using a cane or wheelchair? This question goes first to Emilie Jackson-Edney.
Thank you, Don. You know, I'm very empathic to the accessibility needs of and challenges of those with diverse abilities. However, I will never really know the true magnitude of the difficulties they face on a daily basis, other than possibly spending time walking with those individuals who traverse our roadways and pathways to understand the difficulties they face. So I'll have to just default to the standards and specifications such as the Federal American Disabilities Act and other state and local standards and provisions in the design and the construction processes that are developed to address accessibility and mobility issues with diverse communities. ACHD is continually looking for deficiencies related to access and mobility in our existing assets. And with the help of stakeholders, we can find those. The identified deficiencies are corrected to comply with current standards. When we build, we have to build our assets correctly the first time in substantial compliance with design standard specifications and special provisions. And I did this my entire time when I worked for Ada County Highway District.
Dave?
When it comes to facilities for people with disabilities, all highway projects that are currently under construction or that have been built in recent years have had to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So curb cuts and ramps and so on are standard features of all highway projects today. And retrofitting prior construction has been an ongoing project at ACHD and with every other transportation agency across the country for many years. So the key thing there is to keep looking for deficiencies that might exist to improve them, areas where there might be curb cuts needed and that sort of thing. For the most part, ACHD is doing quite a good job in this regard. The one big deficiency that I've noticed and that I think needs attention is that in the county we have over 500 miles of sidewalk gaps. These are places where a sidewalk comes along for a certain distance, and then there's a gap along the roadside with no sidewalk, just a shoulder perhaps for people to walk on, and then the sidewalk starts up again later on. Fixing these sidewalk gaps is probably the most important thing that we can do in the county to help provide for people with disabilities and to make sure that they have access and mobility throughout the county.
Thank you. Let's discuss transportation impacts. Should ACHD take into consideration the impact of each project on the surrounding neighborhood's quality of life, including downstream traffic, safety, connectivity, air and noise pollution? Examples include improving foothills development, which often adds traffic to older residential neighborhood streets, and improving suburbs on peripheral farmland, which increases single occupancy vehicle commuter traffic and puts pressure on ACHD for expensive road widening. How could ACHD better address such impacts? Dave McKinney, we'll start with you.
The most important thing to consider in this respect is that most of these quality of life impacts that have been mentioned are the types of things that are considered by planning and zoning commissions. These are agencies that have authority over land use planning decisions, and ACHD does not have any land use planning authority. So for the most part, those issues are considered elsewhere, not by ACHD. The traffic issues and traffic planning issues are. However, we've got to keep in mind, I'm very much in favor of property owners and their rights. If I have a piece of property or a development and it was built under certain standards, and now someone else comes along and wants to build a development later on, and new standards get imposed upon them, that is a fundamental unfairness of application of laws to different property owners. Every property owner should have the same ability to develop that others have had. Changing the rules in the middle of the game, that's the type of thing we call arbitrary and capricious application of the law. We've got to recognize that ACHD's purview is the roads, the planning, and that planning needs to allow for everyone. In other words, they're not just doing it for some developments, but for everyone. And the same rules ought to apply to one developer as apply to another, even if there's been a period of time intervening between the two. So in general, these sorts of issues, to the extent that they go beyond the direct highway issues that ACHD considers, they shouldn't be something that ACHD should look at.
Dave, thank you. Emilie, same question to you.
Thank you, Don. So I acknowledge that this question is presented as very complicated and it has many moving parts. So first of all, my answer is to say yes, we should absolutely take all those concerns seriously that are stated. So when planning and designing and constructing new facilities and enhancements, this is what we need to do. Just like our roadways are all connected, so are the impacts of the way they are built. And I know when we are planning and designing federal funded projects, environmental impact statements are required. I don't know that if we need to go to that degree of analysis on local developments and roadway projects, but we certainly should consider some of the same components. Perhaps we should even consider the possibility of exploring the establishment of neighborhood association advisory committees for more input all throughout the development process from conception to construction. Already, Highway District has citizens advisory committees for biking and for walking and disabilities. So why not a collective neighborhood advisory committee? Building right the first time is the only one of my top priorities. We can only design and build our transportation assets right the first time by understanding and considering solutions that are sensitive to the specific needs of each neighborhood and corridor.
Thank you. Vision Zero. Traffic calming is a top priority for neighborhoods. Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. Vision Zero acknowledges that many factors contribute to safe mobility, including roadway design, speed, human behavior, technology, and of course, government policy. It also sets clear goals that will achieve the vision of zero fatalities and severe injuries. Do you think ACHD should use Vision Zero in its policies to address traffic calming? Emilie Jackson-Edney, we start with you.
Thank you, Don. So the question itself identifies the desired components and strategy of Vision Zero models. And my initial response is yes. Why wouldn't ACHD consider many, if not all, of the Vision Zero principles and strategies? To succeed, ACHD would need to acknowledge that business as usual is not enough and that systemic changes are needed to make meaningful progress. So as commissioner, I would certainly want to learn more about Vision Zero and about costs to engage the organization to establish ACHD's transportation standards and policies and develop processes to implement their principles and their strategies. Now, I would want our transportation planning and design professionals at ACHD to provide their analysis and input to the Commission on the viability of such a relationship with Vision Zero and whether or not federal and state statutes and transportation standards would be compromised before making an informed decision.
Emilie, thank you. Dave, Vision Zero.
Number one, when it comes to traffic calming, this is something that everyone can agree upon. We want safe neighborhoods. I don't have any issue with that. And ACHD, to its credit, has objective standards for determining when traffic calming measures are appropriate and called for in a given neighborhood. As ACHD commissioner, one thing that I would try to put in place is a more thorough review of new neighborhoods, new street plans, to consider traffic calming, to identify traffic calming issues before the neighborhood is ever built. Because once a neighborhood is built, your options for traffic calming are diminished and they become more expensive. That's step one. Step two, when it comes to Vision Zero, I have to say my answer is no. Earlier, Jim Hansen mentioned some Vision Zero workshops, and I presume, I don't know for sure, but I presume they were put on by the Vision Zero National Organization. I looked at this organization and find that they are really they want to inject racial politics into transportation planning. For example, determining projects to do and traffic calming measures to take, they want the racial identity of people involved in accidents or other mishaps to be taken into consideration. I'm not in favor of injecting racial politics into transportation planning. That's a step backward, and so I say no to Vision Zero. Furthermore, the idea that we can get to zero is simply false. It's not possible. We can always work and always should work to reduce traffic accidents, but we'll never get to zero. It's an impossibility.
Thank you. Now let's discuss collaboration. ACHD has a whole host of partners to help serve citizens' transportation needs, including 6 cities, the Regional Planning Agency Compass, Ada County, the Idaho Transportation Department, and Valley Regional Transit. How do you hope to work with these partners to advance the Ada County Long Range Transportation Plan, known as Communities in Motion? Dave McKinney, we start with you.
In my work on the Meridian Transportation Commission, we have collaborated on a regular basis with all of these organizations, and that sort of thing should continue, of course, with ACHD as well. Getting input from all of these organizations and making sure that we're on the same page is an important strategy or an important objective in making sure that the different agencies spend their resources in a way that gets the biggest bang for the buck. If we're working at cross purposes, that of course has a negative effect on the whole valley, on everyone involved. So absolutely, we should have regular meetings, regular collaboration with all of these agencies to make sure that we're on the same page, that we've got the same vision, and make sure that we get input to show which directions we ought to adjust, which solutions are better, which road improvement solutions, which transit solutions, which improvements in bicycle and pedestrian facilities. All of these aspects have a part in the overall system, and constant or frequent meeting between these organizations will help ensure that we can get all of these things put together in a way that they work together for the benefit of the whole county.
Dave, thank you. The question on collaboration to you, Emilie.
Thank you, Don. First, let's figure out what Communities in Motion is. And the Communities in Motion 2040 is a collaborative document that was developed by a regional transportation advisory committee consisting of members who represent the representative agencies. And many of those that were listed in are listed in that question. So, and they communicate with their agencies information regarding Compass, plans, studies, and other activities. And ACHD is one of the collaborating partners that has a seat at the table on the advisory committee and on the Compass board of directors. So the Communities in Motion is just a long-range planning transportation that looks into future prioritized projects based on how the region is likely to grow, and it anticipates transportation needs and to accommodate that growth, and prioritizes projects to meet those needs. So when we face competing interests for limited resources, sometimes relationships can seem strained. And as commissioner, I want to sit on that advisory committee and possibly on the Compass board and represent ACHD's interests, and in collaboration with the other agency representatives. As stated in my previous comments, I want to help build our quality of life by making the decisions with clear and direct input from our regional partners and our other stakeholders to explore transportation solutions that address planned growth patterns that are sensitive to the unique needs of each city, corridor, and neighborhood.
That wraps up our questions. Now we're going to do closing statements, and they begin with Dave McKinney. Dave?
Thank you. I believe that I have the broad vision and experience and understanding of transportation planning and construction and design and all the aspects of what ACHD does to move the agency forward. Likewise, I'm determined to find additional resources that the agency can use to construct the facilities that we need, and to find ways perhaps to change our design approach to be able to perhaps meet those needs in many cases at a lower cost. For example, there's a lot of interest in bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Well, in many cases, we are building our roadways with bike lanes adjacent to the travel lanes and sidewalks separated by curb and gutter. In many cases, we might be better off and get more use from these facilities and perhaps be able to build them for less if we do multi-use pathways separated from the roadway itself, so that pedestrians and bicycles use a common pathway that perhaps is larger and wider than a typical sidewalk. And that way, the bike lanes will be used more and may cost less to build in the first place and be safer at the same time. These are the kinds of innovative solutions that I would like to bring to the table for ACHD. And with cooperation between ACHD, its stakeholders, and working with the state legislature, we can make these things become a reality. And that's what I'm determined to do as ACHD Commissioner.
Dave, thank you. Now, Emilie Jackson-Edney with her closing statement.
Thank you, Don. As I've demonstrated, I'm exceptionally qualified because of my knowledge and my extensive experience. I'm committed to community, and I'm fiscally responsible. I choose to serve because I care about our transportation system and about our quality of life in Ada County. I'm not doing this for any financial gain or to satisfy any party affiliation. I want to build on our past successes with a plan for a better future for our children and our future generations. I want to take the culture of excellence within ACHD to a new level because my teams always did their best work when they have strong networks of trust were established at every level. So once again, I'm Emilie Jackson-Edney, and I hope to have won your vote.
Thank you, Emilie and Dave, and all the candidates for participating in tonight's Neighborhood Ada County Highway District Candidate Forum. Links to this forum will be posted by the sponsoring neighborhood associations on Facebook at Neighborhood ACHD Candidate Forum, as well as IdahoPTV.org and BoiseDev.com. I'd like to remind our viewers to please vote on or before Tuesday, November 3rd. If you live in a district that is electing an ACHD commissioner this year, you will find that race at the end of your ballot. Thanks for watching.